Hi everyone, it's Susannah here from Nutrition with Susannah. It might take a few minutes for Facebook to pick this up, and I'm sorry that you can't see me hugely well, but here I am. It's Monday morning, and my goodness, it's been a hot weekend, hasn't it? I hope that you're going to join me today Laurel is on with me. Fantastic. So Laurel and I are going to be talking about something that's really, really noticeable in the heat today, which is being tired, fatigue. Great. So Laurel says you can see and hear me. So that's amazing. And I hope lots of you will see and hear me this morning. I'm just going to make my face a bit clearer. My computer's doing slightly funny things. So if you see odd things, then it could be my computer. And someone else is here as well. So if you're here, if you're live, as you come onto the live, please say hello so that I can say hello to you and have a chat with you this morning. So I'm going to be talking today. Last time, Laura and I just had a massive chat the first time I did this, and we went on for ages. I've got a lot to say, but I'm going to try not to do that today because I know that mostly, we should be here for about 30 minutes. So I'm going to talk to you today about fatigue and being tired. And I've really noticed in this weather that I can get very fatigued. And, that's really common. We're not used to this kind of heat and humidity in the UK, and it can wear us out. But what I'm talking about is even when it's not so hot, being absolutely knackered all the time. And somebody else has joined us. Please say hello and let me know who you are. So doctors have a term for this. It's called TATT, T-A-T-T, which stands for tired all the time. And probably a lot of you know what this is all about and what it feels like and how debilitating it can be. And, at the moment, we could just blame it on the heat. And sometimes, when you go to the doctor, they blame it on other things. They say, well, it's just your time of life, it's your age, or it's whatever. You know what it could be? But there could be other things going on as well. And that's what we're going to look at today. So I'd like to just dive in and have a go at this. Let you know, TATT equals tired all the time, Laurel. Exactly. So I'd like to just dive in, let you know, I've got about 8 things here that I can talk about. We'll see how we get on. So the first thing I want to talk about that can contribute, try saying that first thing in the morning, to tiredness and fatigue is blood sugar dysregulation. So when your blood sugar is not as well controlled as it might be, then this can definitely make you feel tired. Now that doesn't mean you're diabetic, by the way. Please don't get all stressed out and go, oh my God, my blood sugar's out of control, I'm going to be a diabetic. No. A lot of us don't have optimal blood sugar control. And a lot of that can be genetic. I think whatever I ate, my blood sugar would not be super, super controlled, because I really do think there's a genetic element in this. And, I always say to people, you can only play with the cards you've been dealt. So we're all playing with the cards that we've been dealt. And if those cards aren't amazing, then we sadly need to work harder, because life ain't fair that way. So I'm going to tell you first off, my cards are not amazing. But I also think that diet plays a huge role in this. How to recognise if it could be blood sugar dysregulation that's contributing to your fatigue. So the classic sign of this is the 4 o'clock slump. When you're doing all right all day and you get to about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, depending on what your day's like, and you just feel absolutely knackered. And then you get a second wind later on. There's something else that could be contributing to this, which I'll talk about later perhaps. But number one thing with the 4 o'clock slump is not very well controlled blood sugar. So what does this mean? It means that when you eat, well, I was talking about this last time when we talked about low carb diets. So when you eat a lot of food that has some kind of sugar in it, which includes carbohydrate rich food, your body breaks it down and it goes, oh my gosh, there's sugar in the body. We can't have sugar in the body. It's damaging. So it releases insulin, and the insulin goes, quick, take up the sugar. So the sugar gets taken up. So what happens is when you've got sugar, a lot of available sugar, then you get a lot of energy. When the insulin quickly takes it up, then your energy slumps. So if you get that pattern of lots of energy, no energy, lots of energy, no energy, then your blood sugar is probably not super controlled. And as I say, it doesn't mean that you're going to become diabetic or you're going to have a horrendous problem. It just means that you maybe need a bit of dietary help. So what couple of things that would be helpful with this is always remembering to eat some protein with your meal. The reason why is that protein will help slow down the absorption of carbohydrates, so you get less sugar in your bloodstream less quickly. So, you know, even if you're somewhere where you kind of have to eat a lot of carbohydrate, then always make sure that you're eating some protein along with it. And try and limit the amount of simple carbohydrates in your diet, which is all the things that we know about, the white stuff, the white fluffy stuff, basically. If you think that you're having a problem with blood sugar, then you really want to be having less of that. And you know, it's so tempting in this weather to have an ice cream. Oh my gosh, I really enjoy ice creams. I haven't had one yet this summer. I think I've had one this whole summer. I'm just going to have a bit of tea because it's really dry in here. So it's really tempting to eat ice cream, but actually it's not great. It's not going to quench your thirst because they can be very sugary. They are very sugary. And it's going to not help with your blood sugar. So in fact, if you're, you know, it's really tempting if you've been walking around in the sun to go, oh my gosh, I'm so tired, I'll have an ice cream, get my energy levels up. It's not going to be super helpful. If you do like that frozen cold feeling on a hot day, and let's face it, who doesn't? There are some really healthy things that you can make. You know, you can make some lollies with real fruit and some coconut milk, which has got some fat in it, which will also help you to slow down the absorption of carbohydrates. And I will point you in the direction of some recipes for that. My colleague Rosie, who's a nutritional therapist, has some awesome looking lollies on her website, which you can make very easily. Stick them in the fridge. You don't have to go and buy them when you're hungry. They'll be there for you. Okay, so that's the first thing. That's a very brief run through of blood sugar. I would talk more, but I'm mindful of your time. So the next thing, which we all know is super important, is hydration, staying hydrated. And it's very hard in this weather. All year round it's important, not just in the sun, but in the sun it's the most noticeable. So you know, because we've talked about it before, that every cell in your body needs water to function effectively. You know, we are essentially bags of water. So if you're a bag of water and everything that you do needs water to function, then definitely you're going to need to stay hydrated the whole time. And remember that you're losing water through perspiration, you're losing water through urine, you're losing water a lot of the time. And one of the most noticeable things that will go if you're not hydrated is your energy levels. Also, something that we don't think about so much in relation to water is that if you aren't drinking enough water, then you can't get rid of waste effectively. You know, we think of we as being all water, but feces is quite a lot of water as well, actually. So why does that matter if you don't get rid of your poo effectively? Some of the used up hormones in your poo, you know, which would normally be eliminated, can get reabsorbed, and that can have an effect on you as well. So you need water to be able to function effectively and to be able to eliminate waste effectively. So, and, you know, you've heard the 8 glasses of water a day thing. You know, I think I've said this before, there's really no evidence behind that. Yes, we need 1.5 to 2 litres of water a day to function, but we can get a lot of that through food. You know, there's no need to be quaffing water all the time. Yeah, so Laurel's talking about how she made lollies by buying very inexpensive lollipop holders. You can indeed do that. You know, all the Aldi and Lidls and pound shops and places will have them, I'm sure, and pop some juice and fruit in them and stick them in the freezer, which is absolutely great. I'll try and link later on to Rosie's website, where she's got some fabulous recipes that just look amazing. I want to make them. Excuse me. In fact, I'm going out to get some coconut milk today for that very purpose. So as I was saying, the 8 glasses of water a day thing is a little bit of a myth. Some people might need more, some people might need less. You know, if you're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, then you don't necessarily need to be swallowing down water the whole time. And another thing I would say about water is to drink it slowly. You know, if you sort of go and you drink a litre of water and go, oh, look, I've done half my water intake for the day, actually it's not going to help you, because the body can't absorb that much water at once. And all that's going to happen is half an hour later you're running off to the loo, which isn't necessarily helpful if you're busy working all day. So sip water, don't drink it all at once. Some people may need more water than 2 litres a day. You know, I've got a friend who swears she functions optimally on 3. So definitely get to know your body. You know what feels good. And if you want to sort of measure an evaluation of what feels good, then go by the colour of your urine. Yeah, I know some people don't like to look, but you really should. So what you're aiming for, I always say, is a nice white wine, not a beer, if you know what I mean. So, you know, if you've got that really sort of dark yellow-orange colour, then you probably need hydrating. Whereas if your urine's kind of very pale coloured, then you're more likely to be reasonably well hydrated. Also, when we talk about hydration, don't forget minerals. You know, excuse me, I've got a real bad frog in my throat. Oh dear, I'm going to keep drinking. All right, so the thing is that if you're running about in the sun, you know, I've been doing quite a bit of exercise lately, then not only are you losing water through perspiration, but you're also losing minerals. And if you've ever lived in a hot country, which I have, then they tell you to eat a lot of sort of salty cheeses and stuff. And there's a reason for that, because you're replenishing your salts as well as your water. Now, you know, cheese may not be your thing. You may be allergic to dairy. You may be a vegan. You may just not like, you know, to eat dairy products. So, but there's plenty of other things you could do. You know, you could have some olives. Make sure, as always, you have plenty of fruit and veggies as well, because then you're getting your minerals as well as your water, which is really important. So, you know, you don't want to be the person who gets dehydration problems, because they, you know, we think, oh, well, I'll just have a bit of water. Actually, you know, I had a friend when I was living abroad and it was really hot, and, you know, she was doing what all students do. We were students, you know, running around in the sun and saying, no, I'm fine, you know, and trying to be a little bit macho about it all. And she ended up in hospital for a few days, and nobody wants that. You know, nobody wants to end up in hospital with dehydration or heat stroke. It's really no fun. So please don't be macho in the heat. You know, please take water with you, and please take snacks that have some salt content as well, particularly if you're doing exercise. Okay, so not only will that help your energy, but it will help to keep you safe in the sun. Now, talking about safe in the sun, I'm going to talk about the number 3 thing that has to do with energy levels, and that's vitamin D. And that's one of the go-to tests that we do as nutritional therapists if people come to us for persistent fatigue, because vitamin D levels can have a big impact. And of course, if your vitamin D levels aren't optimal, then that can affect other areas of your health as well, most notably bone health, because it helps you absorb calcium. So really, you'll think, oh, you know, it's really sunny. With all the sunlight about, vitamin D really shouldn't be an issue, should it? Well, the thing is that also people are quite scared about sun cancer, and not without skin cancer, and not without good reason, right? So people wear very heavy sunscreen, and, you know, the advertisers are quite militant in saying, you know, you must wear SPF like 2,500 or whatever it is. And then, of course, not only does it block the harmful elements of sunlight, but it also blocks your absorption of vitamin D. So listen, you know, I'm not going to tell you not to wear sunscreen. Absolutely not. You know, you must protect yourself in the sun, and, you know, we must be safe from skin cancer. So it's up to you again, to know your body and to know the balance of, maybe if you're wearing sunscreen, you need to spend a bit longer in the sun to get your vitamin D. But maybe that's not okay for you because you can't really handle that much sun. You need to know what's right for you, and you need to trust your body, trust your medical history. If you've got a history of skin cancers in your family, then do be very careful and cover up more. It also depends on your complexion. Dark skins absorb vitamin D better than pale skins. So it's all very variable about what you need to do. Vitamin D is quite hard to get through diet, particularly if you're a vegan, because the best sources are meat products and dairy products and eggs. Luckily, it's really easy to supplement. So if you're one of these people who's got quite sensitive skin and you burn very easily and you really need to wear a heavy sunscreen because that's what you need to do, then you may want to consider supplementing even in the summer months. When you supplement, you must always buy D3. There's all sorts of really easy ways to take it. There are little lemon drops that you can get, and there's little liquid drops that you can just put into a glass of water and drink. So it's a really, really easy supplement to take, even if you don't like swallowing things, which I don't particularly. It's a very simple one. If you suspect your vitamin D might be low, your doctor can test for this. It's a blood test. They used to test for it all the time. A few years ago, vitamin D was really, really in vogue, and you could get loads of vitamin D tests. But now the NHS has kind of got wise to that and said, oh, well, for some practices are limited to once a year. Well, once a year, if it's not good in winter, do we know it's good in summer? If it's not good in summer, do we know it's good in winter? There's variable sun around during the year. So it's not super useful. So if you've been low in vitamin D, and say you've been tested and your vitamin D is low, and you've been having a bit more sun, maybe supplementing a bit, and you want to know if your vitamin D is okay, then what you can do is there's a test that's available that you can buy directly. It's about £23, and you literally prick your finger, stick a spot of blood on a card and send it off, and it's a proper NHS laboratory that does that. So it is a reliable test. And again, I can see if I can find the link somewhere for you if anyone's interested. Because a word of caution, too much vitamin D is as bad as too little. I heard in my clinical supervision about the story of a boy who went to the doctor and his vitamin D was low, and he was supplementing some enormous dose that really wasn't suitable. And he ended up feeling better quite quickly. He'd gone with fatigue. But then he suddenly felt so much worse. And what had happened was that he damaged his kidneys. So if you know someone who's taking a lot of vitamin D, for goodness sake, do test, or, take it down to a bit more reasonable level, especially if you're in the sun with a minor sunscreen on, because you don't want to go the other way. Okay, so we've done blood sugar, hydration, vitamin D. Okay, number 4, which I'm going to mention, is another, well, it's a mineral this time. We're going to talk about iron. This is something that apparently it's the most common mineral deficiency in the UK is iron deficiency. So it could be a very normal reason for your energy levels to be quite low. Now, iron we need to deliver oxygen to our tissues, and also there are many enzymes in our bodies, which are the things that make the reactions work at the speed that we need them, which contain iron, and therefore if they're not getting enough iron, they're not going to work properly. Now, how to tell if it may be iron deficiency that might be behind your fatigue? Well, if you're a woman and you're menstruating and your periods are heavy, then this could be either a cause or an effect of iron deficiency. It's both. So in other words, if obviously you're losing blood and losing iron during your period, so that could cause you to have less iron in your body. But also, when you have less iron, for some reason you bleed more. Go figure. So that could be a symptom. Also, if you feel your physical performance is diminishing. So if you have heavy periods, decreased physical performance, and greater susceptibility to infections, those could all be signs that fatigue, that behind your fatigue may be iron insufficiency. And again, you can get this tested at your GP. You know, you don't need to come to someone like me, you can, but your GP can test this for you. Now, you probably know that the most bioavailable form of iron, in other words, the kind that we can use most efficiently, is found in animal products. But if you're a vegetarian, don't worry at all, because you can get your iron. You can get it particularly from lentils, tofu, kidney beans, quinoa, and chickpeas. If you can't tolerate those, lesser sources of iron can be Swiss chard, spinach, peas, and dried fruit like figs and apricots. Now, an important thing to know about iron is that you need vitamin C to absorb it as well. So make sure you're having vitamin C with your iron. Particularly good sources of vitamin C are peppers, like, you know, sweet peppers, red peppers, green peppers, but also chili peppers, although I suspect you'd have to eat quite a lot, and you may not want to do that for obvious reasons. Also, kale, broccoli, sprouts, and cauliflower, all what we call the brassica vegetables. And they're also really, really good for supporting your liver. So do try and get your brassicas in as often as you can during the week. Okay, so we've talked about some iron as well. Next thing on my list, physical activity. You know, actually, it's amazing to be outside in the sun. It's really nice. You know, I've been outside almost every day, and it's really good. Hi, person who's just joined us. Please say hello. Please say hello. So, oh, you got away. I scared you off. Not to worry. I'm sure you'll be back. So, being outside is absolutely awesome. Sometimes I feel like I'm walking through treacle in this heat. What can you safely do in the heat? That's the question to ask yourself. You know, I've been out in the parks lately, and I've sort of seen people sort of running up hills in virtually nothing, actually. You know, tiny little pairs of shorts, and if you're lucky you get a crop top as well, which is fine if they're quite athletic, but if you're new to it, it may not be such a good idea. And you know, pushing yourself too hard in the heat may very well wring you out, particularly if you haven't got enough water with you. And you know, it may not be that you're doing sort of super heavy physical training. It may be that you're just kind of outside with the kids and you're running around, and you know, you're not drinking because you're paying attention to the kids, and it's a bit more than you're used to. And you know, not only could you get dehydrated, but it could certainly be contributing to your fatigue. Remember that even in the pool you can be absorbing quite a lot of sun, so do be careful to remember your water and your electrolytes. Okay, as I said to you earlier, I had a friend that ended up in hospital because, you know, she was in a hot country, she wasn't used to it, she was running around in the sun, she wasn't taking enough water and minerals on board, and she ended up in hospital. You know, really, you want to enjoy the sun. So do be aware of the level of physical activity you're doing. Physical activity is absolutely great, but don't push yourself further than you need to. Okay, so the next big thing, which a lot of people experience with persistent fatigue, is hormones. Hormones are super important for this. And a lot of the times, people who, you know, are persistently fatigued, their vitamin D is fine, their iron's fine, they're eating in a way that's consistent with managing their blood sugar, they're still knackered. Very often, it's the hormones that are behind it. Let me have another drink and explain this. So the two big groups of hormones that I'd like to quickly talk about today are the thyroid and the adrenals. So the thyroid is like the gland that controls your whole metabolic rate. So if your thyroid isn't functioning particularly optimally, then your whole metabolic rate slows down, and one of the things that you notice is fatigue. So thyroid function can just naturally decrease with age. So this sometimes explains why there are people who up to a certain age could eat whatever they wanted and sort of be on the go all day and, you know, never put on an ounce. We all got very annoyed by them. And then at some stage, they start not being able to do that anymore. and that can be as a result of thyroid function. So other things that you might notice if it is your thyroid function is you might notice that your hair becomes a little bit thinner. You might notice that you're putting on weight more and not being able to lose it. You might notice that your bowel movements become sluggish. You might notice, you won't in this weather, but when it becomes a bit colder, you might notice that your extremities, like your feet and your hands and your nose, become cold very easily. So if those are the kind and also that your mood changes very rapidly, you have mood swings. So if you're noticing these kind of things, then it may very well be that your thyroid is implicated. Now, you can get a test from the GP. Some GPs will test very thoroughly. Some GPs will only test for a thing called TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone, which means that it's like the on switch for the rest of your thyroid. So that may be functioning well, or you may be producing enough, or you may not be. But if your TSH is not working properly, then that tells you something, but it doesn't tell you what else is going on. It doesn't tell you why. So do check with your doctor what it is exactly that they're going to test for, because really they should be looking at the full panel of thyroid hormones when they test. So actually, what's interesting to note is that when you get your thyroid tests back, and by the way, you should always ask for your tests because they are yours, they're your data. And people will you can phone up the doctor and they'll just say, oh, the reception will just say, oh, your tests were fine, they were within reference range. But that doesn't always mean that things are brilliant. It may mean that they're heading in the wrong direction, and you might want to nip them in the bud before they head in the wrong direction. So the interesting thing is that if your TSH is high, your thyroid function is low. So the higher your TSH number, potentially the lower your thyroid function, which is, a little bit odd, but that's the way it is. So the outside the reference range in this country used to be 4. So if your TSH is above 4, then you'll be able to get medication for that. Although I think they're pushing the level up now. In some places it's as high as 10. However, you may want to look at your thyroid function. We say in nutritional therapy that if your thyroid function, if your TSH level is above 2.5, then that may be worth a look. You won't get a GP to prescribe at that level, probably, but you may need to get some help supporting your nutrition. And the help you get will depend on what else is going on, and this is why you should get as many markers as possible. Laurel's, oh, thank you. Laurel's saying I explained things brilliantly. That's very, very kind of you, Laurel. So hello, Alison. Really nice of you to join us today. I'm so pleased you're here. Thank you for being here with us today. I'm just talking about thyroid function and what can happen, how that can make you feel tired if it's not working. No problem just joining, Alison. That's fine. There's plenty to catch up on. So as I was saying, I'm just talking about hormones. So the sort of things that you can do to support your thyroid will depend on what else is going on apart from your TSH levels. What a lot of people find very helpful if their thyroid is heading towards not working very well is to eliminate gluten. For some reason, gluten and thyroid don't seem to get on very well. But it could be a number of other things. One thing that's very common in teenage girls, particularly, is loss of iodine. So, it's one of those things that you don't need loads of, but when you haven't got it, it doesn't help your thyroid to work very well. And there was one study where they tested girls of 11 to 18, and they found that 50% of them, half of them, had low iodine levels. And, it's really easy to get your iodine levels up, even if you don't eat seafood. I don't eat seafood, and vegetarians don't eat seafood. But what I recommend, and it's actually great in the heat as well, get a packet of nori. Nori is sort of seaweed, and the best place to get it is Oriental supermarkets, because they're a lot cheaper than getting it in the regular supermarkets. But if you're in town, the sushi shops, all these little packets of nori, and they're quite small and they're super light to carry around, so you can just stick them in your handbag, and they will give you some iodine in your system, and they're quite salty, so make sure you have enough water with them. But I was talking about how we're all perspiring at the moment and losing salts, so in this weather they'll help keep your salt levels up. Okay, so we talked about iodine. B vitamins, very, very important for energy and for thyroid function. If you're eating a good balance of vegetables, you should be getting enough B vitamins in your diet. And what else? Essential fats. There you go. Laurel's, if you're in the Temple Fortune area, Laurel's just given you a great source of where you can buy nori. So as I say, you can buy it in little packets. You don't need to get the big sushi sheets because they're not so convenient to carry around with you. You can also chop it up into your salad. I like to do that at the last minute because it loses its crispiness very, very quickly indeed. So there are plenty of things that you can do to support yourself if your thyroid may not be functioning correctly. Oh, Alison knows exactly where that source of nori is. I'm a little bit further south, so I'll tell you where I go. There's a little shop, it's called Nature or something like that, and I go there. It's on, when you go up the Finchley Road, just before Waitrose, there's a little turning to your left, and it's just down there. It's the first shop you come to on the left-hand side, so that's another great place to get it. Okay, the other, I know you meant sushi, Alison. The other set of hormones that may be impacted, that may be implicated if you're very tired, are your adrenals. Now, your adrenals are the hormones that live just above your kidneys. Sorry, your adrenal glands, excuse me, are the glands that live just above your kidneys, and they are responsible for regulating stress. So generally, human beings are built for acute stress. You know, the classic example is running from a saber-toothed tiger. Well, we don't do that anymore. So let's imagine that we step out into the street without looking and a car comes along. That's much more likely to be acute stress. And you leap back and your heart's pounding, your pupils are dilated, and you're breathing heavily, and that is what we call an acute stress response. And that's when you're addressing a hormone called adrenaline, which helps your performance in acute stress situations. What tends to happen nowadays is that we don't have so much acute stress, but we have chronic stress. That means that we're experiencing pressure all the time at work, at home, with the kids. There's so much pressure these days to perform amazingly, to be an amazing parent, to look after older parents or family, to, work for the community, to look incredible. So much pressure all the time. And we can end up chronically stressed, which means the adrenals are working all the time, which they're not really meant to do. And that can very quickly get you fatigued. What a lot of people don't know is that after menopause, your adrenals have to do extra work, because when your ovaries stop producing estrogen, ladies, you don't stop producing estrogen because you still need it to function. So what happens is your adrenals take over. So now, not only have you got all the stresses that you've got in your life, but your adrenals are doing extra work keeping your estrogen going as well. So you really need to support those. Again, that's about having a very nutritious diet, plenty of green leafy vegetables. Alison thinks her adrenals are overworked. Alison, there are tests that you can do. Your doctor won't probably do a test because you have to have acute adrenal stress to be able to get a test from your doctor. There is testing that you can do, but if you suspect that your adrenals may be functioning suboptimally or working a bit too hard, you can definitely support them with a really nutritious diet, which means plenty of green leafy vegetables, plenty of sources of iron and vitamins, and particularly B vitamins. Essential fatty acids are really, really important because they help your cell membranes function effectively, and also they help to make up our hormones. And protein is super important as well, because actually adrenaline is what we call a peptide hormone, which means that it's made primarily out of proteins. Estrogens are what we call a steroid hormone, which means that they're primarily made out of fats. So actually, you know, we always talk about healthy fats in the diet. This is one of the key reasons why. Okay, which brings me on to the next point. If you suspect your adrenals are not functioning too well or are working very hard, then that brings me on to the next point, which is stress. So we all have stress in our lives. You cannot get rid of it, you know, unless you kind of go and live in an ashram somewhere, and even then someone might annoy you. You can't get rid of stress. It's no good me saying don't have stress. You know, that's not going to happen. You know, this is the real world. What we can do is manage stress. So first of all, we can support our stress hormones by diet, as I explained before. And secondly, there are ways that you can mitigate stress. And that's different for different kinds of people. You know, I am fed up of people saying to me, you know, get a massage or learn to meditate, because that isn't me. You know, I really don't like being touched, quite frankly, and a massage would just look like my idea of hell. It would really upset me. Sorry, massage therapists. I know you're all wonderful, and you know, if Laura's watching, I'm sure you're absolutely amazing, and you know, I'd recommend you anywhere. But it's just not something that I particularly like, and you know, we all like different things, right? Otherwise, it'd be a boring world. And you know, a lot of people can't meditate very well, and I'm one of those people. But there are things that we can all do, and you have to find your thing. My thing is art and making cards. That's what I love to do. You know, I love to sit down and, you know, I don't particularly love colouring in it for its own sake, but I love to know that I'm going to make a card or a piece of wall art or something really nice like that. I love to read. I love to make time to read fiction, and I love to be out in nature. And being out in nature, of course, is fantastic. We were talking about vitamin D, and we were talking about being active, and so on and so forth. So if you are stressed, you know, I know you can't get rid of your stress, but you can definitely find ways to manage it. The other thing is to delegate. You know, I bet that there are people in your life to whom you can delegate certain things. You know, I get incredibly stressed about money. You know, I'm sure I could manage my own accountancy, because I don't really have very much of it, but actually it makes me incredibly stressed and upset, so I delegate to an accountant. You know, it's an expense, but I need to do that for my own sanity. So, you know, don't think that looking after your own sanity is selfish. If you end up with acute adrenal stress, then you can be very ill indeed. Don't underestimate how ill you can be. So it makes sense to look after your own sanity and, you know, find out what makes you tick and take care of that. So the very last thing I'm going to talk about now, we've got to number 8 finally, is sleep. Of course, it makes sense that if you really aren't getting enough sleep, then eventually it's going to have an impact on energy. And what I'm finding at this time of year is the sun is coming through my window very early and waking me up. And that can be a bit of a problem. So there are 2 ends to the sleep thing. There's the not getting to sleep, and there's the waking up really early. And there's the quality of sleep as well. So there's kind of 3 ends to it. So the not getting to sleep, if you have insomnia, it could be about stress. It could be about when you're eating. You know, you should aim to finish your meal at least 3 hours before you go to bed, particularly if you're a person that's a bit refluxy. And if you are, I can definitely help you with that, but unfortunately we can't discuss it right here, right now. You need to have a bit of a bedtime routine. I think it's really good to turn off your electronic devices an hour before you go to sleep. I don't always manage it, but I think it's a good practice to do, because it means that you're not getting that blue light from your electronic devices that can impair sleep. I find that having a hot bath kind of makes me much more sleepy. Again, that may not be your thing. You know, if you're one of these people who absolutely hates baths, then you're going to be shouting at your screen right now. So you have to find what's great for you. Okay, it's always important to find what's great for you. Making sure that your room's dark. You know, this time of year you may want to install some blackout blinds. My husband wears an eye mask to sleep. I don't really like it. I don't like to have things on my face when I sleep. If you're sort of chronically not able to sleep, some people find lavender oil on their pillow really helpful. And what I find is a couple of days before my period, I always get insomnia. It's just a function of my cycle. And there's some stuff, I haven't tried it yet, but I've been given some and I've been told it's absolutely incredible. If Shula's on here, she told me I must try it. It's called This Works, and you just spray a little bit on your pillow, and apparently this works in getting you off to sleep. You know, my husband always says count sheep. Well, I'm not very interested in sheep, and I don't find counting them helps. But I do find that having a bit of a narrative in my head and telling myself a bit of a story gets me off to sleep like no other. The other thing is that you can get lots of hypnosis tapes for sleep, and that can really help you. Now, if you're waking in the night, it could be because you've had too much water before bed. So note what I said earlier about sipping water through the day. If you're waking in the night in pain, you need to see someone, okay? And you need to see your doctor in the first instance, because waking in the night in pain could be an indicator of something going wrong, and you need to get that checked out and be sure, okay? Waking in the night to go to the loo is reasonably normal as we get older, I'm afraid, but hopefully you can get straight back off to sleep. If not, do try and employ the strategies that I mentioned earlier. Waking up too early. Again, you may want to make sure that your room's dark. If you have a snorer in the place, you know, my husband likes earplugs because I am a snorer. Or, you know, it may be that you even have to sleep in another room for a bit if you really need that good night's sleep. If you really have to get up early, or, you know, you really can't block out the light, then it may be that you want to power nap during the day and just make up the time that way. And power naps can be a really, really useful way of making up sleep. So here we go. I've talked about blood sugar, hydration, vitamin D, iron, physical activity, hormones, stress, and sleep, which could all be impacting your fatigue. That's a lot. I've covered a lot, and I've given you some general tips, and there's been a very interesting discussion on here about sushi, but obviously I've not been able to say anything specific about any person. So if any of this is resonating with you, then what you can do, if you've got a simple question, then you can just type it into the comments anytime you're listening to this. If your question's more complex and you'd like some help, then please email me at info@nutrition-susannah, susannah.co.uk, and I will see how best I can help you. Thank you so much for your message, Laurel. I want to tell you one more thing, which is that if blood sugar balance is your issue, and I think it's an issue for about 80% of the clients that I see, I have an online 60-day course called Stronger Without Sugar, which will help you to kick your sugar habit, kickstart your energy, and build healthy habits for life. You can find out more about that over on my Facebook page, Nutrition with Susannah. And I'd love to see you on Nutrition with Susannah anyway, because there are always great recipes, polls, articles, great chat. We have a lot of fun over there. So I'd really like to see you over on Nutrition with Susannah. And if you haven't liked it yet, then please do, because it's a lot of fun. So I'd like to thank Laurel. I'll thank you for putting my email link up there, Laurel. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank Laurel and the Laurel Leaf Networkers for having me here today. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you all. Take care, have a lovely day, enjoy the sun, and I will see you back here or on my Facebook page or in my email very, very soon. Until then, take care. Bye.